Everyone says just meal prep, but nobody gives you a manual on how to do it. And meal prep doesn't have to be a huge Sunday cooking marathon. We are not turning this into a full-time job. Did you know there are 3 types of meal prep? I'm going to tell you the 3 types of meal prep, who they work for, and the one I used to use versus the one I use now after losing 100 pounds. I'm going to show you my fridge because I like to component prep and I have a lot of it done already, but let me show you. Component prep is when you take ingredients and you just prep them so you can just grab and go. So I have some radish and celery and some homemade salsa. Full meal prep is when you actually cook a large meal and then you take a meal, you make extra of it, and then you freeze it. These are just leftovers. Back to the component prep, you see I actually have chicken right here and here. I did 2 batches at 2 different times, so first in, first out type of thing. I already wash and slice my lettuce, so it's just more of a grab and go situation. Here is my freezer. I also bulk prep out my meat, so I have hamburger and chicken here. They're in single serve Ziploc bags, and then I can just grab what I need out. And this is milk. It's almond milk for my coffee and Celsius. But I have them frozen as ice cubes for iced coffee or fun seltzer waters, type things like that. And then here's a bunch of onions that I chopped up and I just freeze them and use them as needed. I also like to component prep because I get to cook once, eat all week, and switch up the flavors and mix and match. I buy in bulk, that way I freeze some for future use while I'm cooking some for present use. It saves money when you buy in bulk. It also saves time because you can reuse your cutting board and your processor one time versus several times through the week. You don't have to pull it back out. Social media shows that you have to have 100 containers out at a time or your meal prep wasn't complete or successful. And that makes beginners assume that they're doing it wrong before they even get started. Meal prep is simply doing something now so you don't have to do it later. For example, these radishes. Yes, I could just take out what I need, cut it up that day, every day. Or I could spend a few extra minutes, chop it up now, slice it with my food processor because it doesn't make sense to do 1 or 2 radishes, but it makes sense to do a bunch of them, right? And then I have them in the fridge for grab and go for the rest of the week. I do recommend in food storage containers like this one. I change them out due to the size of whatever I'm storing, but I highly recommend these versus a ton of little tiny meal prep containers. And that way you can just put your ingredients in. And like I said, I do first in, first out. So I am just going to put the older ones right on top. I do this every week though, so they get eaten pretty fast. I like to use my cutting board in a way that I can just kind of rinse it off, not do a thorough washing. I know it sounds weird, but that way I do the food in the order that makes the most sense to me. So I'm going to put these cucumbers and then I'm going to do the zucchini and then I'm going to do the jalapeno peppers because the jalapeno peppers are going to require like a full washing after. I try to just do things in a way that makes life easier, not harder. The meal prep that I used to do before I lost the weight was more of a full meal prep where I would just cook extra, freeze leftovers, and call it good. Since losing the weight and just eating a lot more fresh foods and things like that, then I do more of the component or ingredient prep. I find that that's easier for me. And my fiance can pick and go as he chooses to. We're not stuck eating the same meal day after day anymore, which is not a problem for me, but not everybody likes that. The other type of meal prep, your weekly grab and go prep, which we're going to do that here in just a minute. I just want to get some of this batch prepping done. For the cucumbers, I do slice them in thirds and then I just quarter them. This is for 2 reasons. One, my dog, come here. He is a cucumber addict. And these fit in my bento boxes, which you're going to see here in just a few minutes. I pickle my cucumbers. So some of them I pickle, some of them I leave plain for him. I would say the pros and cons of a full meal prep would be, the con would be more work up front. And some people get tired of eating the same meals day after day. But the prep makes it easier for the grab and go aspect. And you always have a meal ready at all times. The pros and cons of the ingredient bulk prep is you spend time prepping everything and then it makes it easier to do things later in the week. However, you're still having to finish the meal later in the week. So I am still cooking, but it also gives it more of a fresh feel. So I enjoy that. And it doesn't feel like I'm eating leftovers all the time. I cut the seeds out because my dog makes a mess. It is super easy to pickle things, which lowers the carb count, but it also changes the flavor a little bit, and I just like it. But the carbs are the most important part because I'm on keto. So all I do is salt and pepper, some garlic, some onion, and then the pickling agent, which is the vinegar. I do quite a bit. Actually, let's just do the whole thing. This will last a few rounds. I usually do 2 rounds and then kind of judge it on the third one. If it looks okay, I'll use it again. If not, then I switch it out. And some sweetener, and then I just top it off with water. And now I have homemade cucumbers for my meals every day without having to go through the prep of it. All right. We are just going to slide that over. I'm just going to go straight in with the zucchini. And then, let's see, I'm going to slice it and then cut it like this. And I'm going to go ahead and cook this. That's one reason I'm just winging it with a cutting board. If I was going to store this, I would definitely wash the knife and cutting board prior. All right. Personally, I like the little bit of leftover in the pan from the pork chops. It gives the zucchini or whatever a little bit of flavor. So I'm going to leave all that in there, which is also going to save me a pan that I don't have to wash. And throw all this in there, some oil, turn it on and forget it. All right, time for the salsa. And then all I'm going to do is cut up this jalapeno. Grab a spoon because I'm going to take out most of these seeds. I like the flavor, not all the spice. I'm leaving just a few seeds just for a little bit. And then I'm going to do 2 cans of diced tomatoes. I'm going to do the juice of 1 just in case. I usually end up adding a little bit of it, but I just like to be able to adjust the consistency as needed. I do salt and pepper. You guessed it, onion powder and garlic powder again. This is where the prepping goes into play because you don't have to pull the stuff out every single time. And then I'm going to add some cilantro leaves and lime juice. And this is why I take out some of the tomato juice just in case. I do like more of a picante watery salsa. Can you tell I've done this before? Another thing I like to ingredient prep is my ranch dressing. Otherwise, I would have to put 25 grams of sour cream and 16 grams of mayonnaise in each dish. So instead, I like to just mix it all. So I do weigh everything out, and this is how I do it. Empty out the container of sour cream. I have 280 grams. Alexa, if I have 280 grams of sour cream, how much mayonnaise do I need if I normally do a ratio of 20 grams of sour cream and 16 grams of mayonnaise?
You'd need 224 grams of mayonnaise.
Might just be 200. All right, close enough. Then for the seasonings, I'm going to do parsley, garlic powder. You see, I use a lot of the same seasonings all the time. Onion powder, and then dill, salt and pepper. And then I'm just going to mix that up. And you know what? Normally, I always put it back in my sour cream container. But since my mayonnaise is empty, I wonder if I can just put it in there for a squeeze. And there you have it. There's my ranch. I'm going to attempt it. I'm going to move my scale. This might get very messy. I normally do not put it back in this container. I do have a funnel. Let's try that. Ranch frogs, be with me. I hope this works. It's very slowly going through. Can't even see it. I'll be back in 20 years. Did that work? Technically, yes. Did it add 20 years to my life? Also, yes. I would not recommend putting it in this bottle. So what you're going to see is what I do every day versus how I'm just going to eat for the rest of the week, right? All right. So every day, I like to mix in this bowl just because I should have got my clear bowl so you could see. But this is the bowl that I made the ranch in. And I like to mix in here just because it gives me more space. And then normally, that's what I do every day. I would take my lettuce, which is also mixed with a little bit of spinach because I had a meal the other day that required spinach. And then I do 110 grams. This is just based on my macros. does not have to be everybody's measurement. 117 grams of that. I do 63 grams of tomatoes. And then I'm just going to slice it up. Doesn't have to be perfect. Every day I do slice them. If I meal prep, I do not slice them. I'm just trying to show you the difference. But every day I measure out my lettuce. I cut my tomatoes, weigh everything out. The fun things that don't need to be measured is my radishes and my banana peppers. The carb count is so low for ingredients that don't really have a large number of macros. I just don't count them. And then my banana peppers. Doing this is very messy. It creates a lot of dishes. I'm going to put that there and zero it out. Go to ounces. Let's see how many ounces this chicken is. It's 4.6, which is fine. I normally do 5. And then cut this up, put that in my salad, leave that there because we're about to bulk prep these. Zero this out, go back to grams. This is where the ranch dressing comes in handy. We're going to do 40 grams. Squeeze bottle makes it so much better. All right. And then we're just going to mix it up, add a little bit of salt and pepper. This is why I like to use the big bowl because it just makes it so much easier to mix everything. All right. Perfect. Now, if you're like everybody else on the internet, you use these, which is great. I used to use them until I got bento boxes. And now I use these because they are leak-proof, which when I'm traveling, that's what I like. My salad fits exactly in this compartment. I also like the bento boxes because, one, they're leak-proof, like I said, but they're also smaller and more compact, and you can put more food in them, which is weird. So, yeah. I have transitioned to these. Love them. I keep the black containers for takeaways now. So if a friend comes over and wants to take leftovers or something, or if I'm traveling and I just don't care if I remember to bring it back. So they're kind of disposable throwaways for me at this point, the black containers. So that fits perfectly. It really does, I promise. I mean, it's tight, but it fits. It fits, it ships. That's my motto at work. Stepped on my dog because he is always underfoot. And then I would pack up the top of this. And that is how you meal prep. I would do this 20 more times. We can do that real quick with the salad because I am going to the office 3 times this week. So full meal prepping is literally just doing it all repeatedly until you have enough for a few days. Or making extra, and instead of leftovers, you purposely freeze it. When you're trying to figure out the meal prep plan that would fit your life, think about the speed. Think about your daily to-do. Think about, do you want grab and goes or do you want a little bit of flexibility? You could also combine all 3. I've done all 3 today, and I have ingredients left over that I'll continue to use. I have meals ready to go. I know we're working on the salad, but don't forget I already have my zucchini and pork chops prepped so that can be my lunch. I challenge you to meal prep this week, whether it be a protein or a vegetable. Prepare 2 to 3 lunches. Let me know in the comments how you liked it. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I am very social, whether it be in the comment section or my Facebook page that I created recently for you guys. It is linked down in the description below, along with a free shopping list and more. And just remember, meal prep doesn't have to be one thing. It just has to make your life easier later in the week. Yes, it took me some time, not as much time as you think. And I saved time by doing it all at once versus having to pull everything out later in the week repeatedly. Like you saw, I used 2 cutting boards. I used 2 knives. I used 1 pan. And I used my food processor twice. If I was doing it during the week, I would have had to cut all my radishes up individually. Instead, I just prepped them and I just threw them in the processor, and it made it so much easier. But also, if you don't have a food processor, that's okay too. I lived a lot of years meal prepping without one. It's totally fine. It just takes a little more effort, but I promise it's worth it. Also, just let me show you the mess. There was the salsas we made, Cole's cucumbers, my cucumbers, the pork chops, the zucchini, and then my salad prep.